This is the High School Football America podcast for October 23rd, 2019. I'm Jeff Fisher. Time to travel to the Slate Belt in Pennsylvania, just beneath the Poconos, tucked between the Poconos and the Lehigh Valley, my hometown area. This Saturday, it will be the 100th playing of the rivalry game between Bangor and Pen Argyl. Yes, it is going to be a dandy with these two towns that butt up against each other, button heads on the gridiron for the 100th time. Pen Argyl leads the all-time series with 50 wins to 45 for Bangor. There have been 4 ties. The Slaters of Bangor bring a 2-game win streak into this one that goes all the way back to the early 20s, with the first unofficial game being played in 1919, but the first recognized game was played in 1922. This area of the country is known for its slate quarries. Yes, the slate chalkboards and the slate roofing shingles, a lot of them back in the day came from the Bangor, Pennsylvania area. And this one is going to be a fun one on Saturday as these two communities do it one more time, but this time for the century mark. All right, we're going to head to the Slate Belt now and talk to a guy that not only played in this great game between Bangor and Pen Argyl in the Slate Belt, but he's also going to be officiating it come Saturday. He was chosen to be part of a special crew that will go out there and make sure that the Green Knights and the Slaters put on quite a show. Kevin LaBar, a good friend of mine, is on the line right now to talk about the 100th game between the Slaters and the Green Knights, and he is a former Slater. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you.
It's great to have you here, and I'm not quite sure where to start on this, but because we're featuring this completely on the podcast here, I'm going to let you be kind of a little bit of a Chamber of Commerce guy, a guy that played in the game, and I talked a little while ago about the Slate Belt and the fact that when they had chalkboards back in the day, like when you and I were going to school, that's where the slate came from and all that. But give the people a little snapshot of what Bangor and Pen Argyl are like, not necessarily the rivalry, but what the communities are like.
Well, both communities are pretty much hardworking towns. A little bit of businesses here and there. They really thrived back in the early 30s, 20s with the slate quarries. Both areas are small towns. I think Bangor has about 5,000 population. I'm not sure what Pen Argyl is. It's smaller. But they all thrived with just the slate quarries and the industries. And then your little mom and pop stores along the way. People are pretty much hardworking people. They're dedicated to their towns. That's why most of us have never really moved out of it. I mean, most of my friends I graduated with, they're still in town. People from Pen Argyl are still living in the town that they were from. So we just kind of keep a close-knit community throughout the whole thing. And the Slate Belt pretty much thrives because of everybody just staying in town and being what they are.
Yeah, well, that's what I love about my neck of the woods. And, of course, when I was there back in 2010 up in Rosetta, when you guys there at Pius X were making a push for a state championship, you guys opened your door to me, and I learned so much about it and some of the history. Let's also help the people around the country that are listening to this that don't know about Bangor and Pen Argyl, and most people would probably mispronounce Pen Argyl if they saw it spelled in front of them. Talk a little bit about the rivalry as you know it, and what I mean by that is, it was played on Thanksgiving before you got there up until about the mid-'70s. Then and when you played in the early 80s, it's just the last game of the season. But how would you describe the rivalry, when you were growing up, knowing that was the game and how it evolved? And then talk a little bit about your time playing in the game and what it's like to not only, play in a game like that, but play in a game where the communities are literally butting up against each other.
Well, it was always fun. I remember as a kid, and my father always taking us Thanksgiving Day. That would be like her big thing. Mom be home making the turkey, and she never liked the cold, so that's why we would just go. And we would go to the game on Thanksgiving Day. It was kind of a fun time. We'd go out with Dad, my brother, and I, and we'd just sit there, watch the game, cheer on the Slaters, and usually watch really good football games. It's one of those things that didn't matter which team had a better record at that point. It was just a matter of winning that game. And one team could be really bad one year and the other team good, and sure enough, the team that didn't have the better record actually won it. It was just one of those games that, you thrive on it, and the people thrive on it, and the communities thrive on it. It also brings back a lot of alumni to the area as well. So everybody's really happy because everybody gets to see each other It's actually, I think, most of the time bigger than a homecoming game for a lot of other schools. This game actually brings people back more than homecoming does, because in fact it is the biggest game that the schools play. And as far as being a member of it, there's nothing like it. You actually prepare your whole year just to play that Pen Argyl Bangor game. So that's the only game that you want to win. You could lose them all, but that's the only one that you want to win. I mean, you want to win them all, but if you can only win one, that's the one you want to win. You want to beat Pen Argyl.
Yeah, that's one of the beauties of the game.
Played against friends. We've been friends. I still have friends, that we met on the field, and we're still friends to this day. It was just it's a great environment. The fans are great. People cheering, yelling. It's probably the most boisterous area you'll ever see is in the slate belt during that game.
100th game coming up. Bangor and Pen Argyl. Kevin LaBar, a good friend who will be officiating in the game. He played in the game back in the early 80s. And at that point in time, one of the all-time greats in Pennsylvania, certainly from the Lehigh Valley, but I think statewide, Paul Farnan was your coach. I'm sure something along the lines as you get ready for this 100th game, there's been talk of, past players and past coaches. Tell me a little bit about Coach Farnan, what you remember about him, because he truly was one of those throwback old-school guys, wasn't he?
He wouldn't, by today's standards, with the way that everybody has to be PC, he would not be a coach. He probably wouldn't even be allowed on the school property. But as far as we were concerned, he was our mentor. He was the guy who we appreciated. We loved him. Hated him, of course. You know how your coach just rides you so much, but you also appreciate what he did for you, make you the man that you become. And that's what most of us had gotten out of it. We learned to be tough. We learned to take, criticism and ridicule a little bit to a degree, some of the stuff that he would do. But he also made us tough. I mean, we had an oak tree that we had to tackle. The tree had to be there about 100 years. And he would tell you, if he told you to go tackle the tree, you tackled the tree. Nobody got it down yet. It's still there in between two practice fields, but it's still there. But he was just one of those guys that he told you to do it, you did it. He commanded respect and he gave it back to you. But he would also be the first one there to help you along the way, give you that little kick in the butt that you needed, and make you a better person. So he was just I don't know if you could say Renaissance man would be the way to go with it, but he was just one of those guys that was a good guy. Still in touch with him today, still see him around town. Again, most of us never leave the towns that we live in. We love our towns. So I see him around town. We're always talking, seeing how he's doing, and always talking about the games from years ago.
Well, I'm trying to figure out how old is Coach, because I thought he was old when he was there and you and I were kids. I mean, we're about 5 years apart on age. How old is Coach now?
I'm going to say he's probably pushing 85, 87, 88, somewhere around there.
So will he be at the game on Saturday?
Oh, I'm sure he will be. He will also be at the banquet Thursday. There's a banquet for the teams and like alumni and stuff like that down at an area down in Bethlehem.
Oh, cool.
So he'll probably be there. I think he's one of the speakers. As a matter of fact, I'm almost positive he's one of the speakers and one of the other personnel that have actually been into the Hall of Fame that they're now doing.
It's leading up to the game. That's great. The 100th game between Bangor and Pen Argyl. I'm talking to Kevin LaBar, who will be officiating the game. He's an alum for Bangor. And, one of the things that I picked up on, because I do read the local papers a lot, especially leading up to this game and this interview, is there's a little bit of twist there. Speaking of the coaches, you got a Pen Argyl guy who used to be the head coach at Pen Argyl, and now he's the head coach at Bangor. That's a little bit of a twist with Paul Raduzzi there. I know you're an official, so I don't need you to break it down too much, but that's got to cause a little bit of chit-chat leading up to this one, doesn't it?
Well, in a way, yes and no. Because Paul, yes, he was a Pen Argyl grad. I have played against him. I've also one of my brother-in-law's best friends because my wife's from Pen Argyl, so there's where that little community rivalry comes into play as well. But we also, have known each other for years, so yes, I know Paul. But then John Smith, on the other end, was actually an assistant coach at Bangor for probably 5 years or 6 years. And then he took over Pen Argyl school. So it was almost like a flip-flop in a way, and both guys are really good guys, good friends of mine.
They sure are.
So it's one of those things that it builds it, but it doesn't build it that much. Like most people would think it would be, but because there's somebody who was coaching at Bangor now at Pen Argyl, and somebody who's at Pen Argyl now at Bangor, it kind of makes it a little bit balanced in there. So everybody has like a little bit of everything. So it's kind of interesting how that worked out, but it should just be an interesting game. I mean, both guys are good coaches, so I think the fans will enjoy it.
Yeah. So what is the buzz? So you got the banquet going on. What's been the buzz around town circa 2019? I guess the first game was back in 1922.
I think it was like right around 20. I know there were two games that were not, or one game wasn't played somewhere around there. I think that was during like the end of World War I and stuff. There was like a couple breaks in there from what I've read about myself, trying to be a history buff on this. So yeah, but it's been like, everybody's talking about it. Everybody's doing something. If you go on Twitter or anything else, you look at all the different things. Everybody's putting up old, newspaper articles, They're showing the videos that they've had from other games. They're putting old clips together and making a video out of that on YouTube. It's just been a pretty neat thing to actually just sit there and watch and look back at all the different ones, especially the guys with the leather helmets.
like in your day, right? You played under life. Well, but they didn't have film back when. No, wait a second. You're not that old. I'm just teasing. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
The guy sitting there winding it with a hand crank wheel, recording it.
Yeah, the little squirrel running around on the wheel there to make the projector go around. All that good. Well, I can imagine there's a lot of excitement there. And then tell me what it was like. Let's just kind of start with the fact that there is a special officiating crew. Before we rolled the tape here, you said basically everybody was looking to find officials in the area that had a connection to the game. So tell the listeners a little bit about the officiating crew and how that was put together, and obviously you're part of that.
Well, they had sent out, the athletic directors have gotten together, and they've done a fantastic job with everything so far. The coaches and the school districts, the school board, they were looking for officials that are from the Slate Belt area to do this game because it is such a big game, 100th game. They were looking for officials from the area. Two guys that were selected or asked to do it declined. One, his son plays for Bangor, and the other one is a teacher at Bangor. So respectfully, they declined. And we were talking, and everybody was trying to find people. So basically what ended up happening is these 7 officials, there are 2 Bangor graduates, 2 Pen Argyl graduates, and 2 graduates from Pius X, which is the local Catholic school right up the road in the Slate Belt. And then one guy is from the Easton area, which still has connections to the Slate Belt. So it kind of worked out interesting and different how that you got all these different referees, but we're all from the same area.
Yeah, no, that's really neat. Now, you also shared with me that, and we're good enough friends. I can say, you got a body only a mother could love there. But I understand you're going to be dressed up kind of differently for the 100th game. It's a little bit of a throwback outfit there. Tell the people about who. It's like the red carpet. Who are you wearing, Kevin?
I'll be wearing my white knickers that we had worn back up until I believe it was 96, 97. We were wearing the white knickers and the white socks with the black stripes. Nice. So those are going to be worn again. It'll be a throwback style uniform for a throwback kind of game. They had bought us all, the school districts have gotten together and they got us all jerseys with the rivalry logo on them, so that something that we can keep as officials to always remember this by, that we were part of this, this tradition that's been going on and this big game that is going to happen. So I thought it was a pretty neat idea to go back to the old school uniforms. I
love it. And I'm assuming the both teams are wearing some throwbacks, right? Have you seen them yet? I mean, are they cool looking? Have you seen any snapshots or something?
I have. The uniforms are pretty much basic because if you remember back in the day, uniforms they weren't about the style like you see like the Oregon Ducks and everybody else having to have the new fancy uniforms with bright letters, bright colors. They're just plain basic uniforms. They're maroon shirts for Bangor with 3 white stripes on the sleeve. Pen Argyl will be wearing white with green stripes on the sleeve. So they're just basically throwback uniforms, nothing much it's actually going to be pretty neat to see.
Yeah, I'm sure, and I'm a little offended that you were inferring that I would remember back to those days when you said you might remember. I'm not that old there, Kevin. You're no, I'm just teasing. Kevin LaBar on the line here. We're talking about the 100th game, Pen Argyl and Bangor. He is going to be part of a special officiating crew. Pen Argyl leads the all-time series, 50 wins to 45 for the Slaters, 4 ties. Bangor has won the last 2, and you know what? I don't want to let off any of the other guys. I'm sure you can rattle off the names of the other guys in your crew, so let's give them a little bit of props. Who are the other guys that will be officiating with you?
The head referee will be Joe DiOrio. He is one of the Pius graduates. The umpire will be Barry Schaefer. He's from the Easton area. The head linesman will be Larry Eichlin, who is a Bangor graduate. The line judge will be Tommy Singer, who is a Pen Argyl graduate. Back judge will be Craig Raduzzi, who is a Pen Argyl graduate. And then I am the side judge for the game.
Yeah, that's
so those are the 7.
those names stick out to me. Obviously, I get homesick when I start talking Lehigh Valley football here. So I'm not going to ask you, of course, to pick a winner. That would be inappropriate with the official on the line right now. But just as we wrap up this segment, I have one more question for you about officiating. But what would you say going into this game has you kind of pumped up as a guy that's in charge of making sure the game is played well and fairly?
I'm just looking forward to the kids playing hard. I love football. I love the game of football. I really just love to see a great game being played well by both teams. And the kids, hard fought, hard hitting, nothing dirty, nothing cheap. Just play hard, play to win, do everything that you can to help your team. I'm just looking forward to that. I believe it's just going to be one of those games that it's just going to be a hard-fought game in the trenches, and that's who's going to come out the winner, is whoever can win in the trenches.
Yeah.
Neither team is really high scoring. I believe that it's going to come down to that little area where the linemen are going to make the difference in the game.
Well, it's the 100th game. It's going to be a lot of fun. And before we let you go, Kevin, I said to you before we started rolling the tape here a little bit, I wanted to kind of get your thought. One of the things that, High School Football America has written a lot about over the last several years is the lack of numbers for you guys in the stripes. It is not an easy job. No one is ever going to retire on what you guys get paid. You're under more and more pressure as the years go by. The numbers drop. I'm just curious what it's like in the Lehigh Valley and Pennsylvania in general. Are you guys struggling for numbers to bring in, some new blood in that? Tell the fellow stripers around the country what it's like in a very good place for high school football.
It's pretty much like everywhere. We're having a hard time replacing people that either leave because of jobs and moving out of the area, or guys that are just retiring from doing it. It's a tough occupation to do. It's a lot of time away from family. For myself, it's 10 to 12 weeks every Friday night that I'm away. Fortunately, I have a great wife that actually accepted it and knows this is one thing that I like to do. And
I'm going to give a shout out to Tracy because you haven't done it yet. So yeah, your wife is Tracy. She's a great person. She's the better half of. But anyway, go ahead, Kevin.
and it's like so it's time away, and that's a hard part. I mean, you're spending sometimes like I'm leaving my house at 4:00 to get to a game, and I'm not going home till 10:30, sometimes 11, depending upon the game. So you're away from the family a lot during this time of year. So a lot of guys are changing for that reason. It's also the fact that, we're adding more officials. I know when I first started, we used to just use 5-man crews. Now we're doing 7-man crews, which is what the NFL is using, the same 7 setup. And we're just stuck in the middle where we don't have enough officials to cover the games in the area in the Lehigh Valley with 7-man. And then the other league that is part of us, which is Colonial League, they use 5. So upwards of 100 officials are being used on a Friday. Mm-hmm. We're also using officials on the clock now that they accepted the 40-second play clock rule. So now we have officials doing the clock as well. So now you're looking at probably like 120 officials being used on a Friday night. Some of them are getting burned out. They can't make it. They have jobs, which we all have to work. And again, the other thing is just the time away and looking at the money that you're getting isn't always the best. Mm-hmm. But some of us do it, like myself. I do it because I love the sport. I like getting out, running around. It's a good time. You get to know a lot of good coaches, a lot of good people. And then again, there's other guys that are leaving because of the coaching, that they don't like the yelling in their ear. They don't like getting yelled at. And it depends. It takes a certain personality to be able to do that kind of a job and deal with coaches, fans, players. Yeah, you got to have a tough skin, basically, is what it comes down to. And some guys just don't have that.
No, and, I talk about this all the time, when I hear people in the stands or even coaches, really riding a guy. It is part of the game. There's no doubt about that. But in my opinion, and I've been saying this for years, it's out of control. I guess the last question I have for you on that is what is the answer? I mean, how do you infuse new blood with all those, I'm going to just call them negatives for lack of a better word, with all of those negatives, on the if you look at, should I become an official, you got a pro and a con list, and there's a lot of con on there.
There is, but I still think that if you enjoy the sport and you played the sport and, you can no longer do it. Of course, we all get older and knees go and everything else, but you could still be out there being a part of the game. And if you really enjoy the game, I suggest going to your local state area. Like for us, it's the PIAA, Pennsylvania Owners Scholastic Athletic Association. Signing up, become an official, get the rule book, read the rule book, take the test, become an official. Find somebody to mentor you is going to be the key thing. I think a lot of times these guys are just thrust into situations they don't know how to handle it because nobody was actually there to mentor them. Whereas I think the chapters have to do a better job of getting people mentored with somebody who's been doing it for years. And this way they can start to develop. They can see how they handle coaches. They can see how they handle situations. And they could be better. And then their job would be even easier for the fact that they didn't have to struggle by just being thrown into the game one day and saying, look, you're going to be a varsity official. And this game moves so fast anymore. It's not like years ago when it was just run, run, run. Now it's passing. It's the read option. It's everything that you have to be looking for. And they can have somebody mentor them and make it actually better for them so that they can actually do their job better and enjoy the game and then stick around and stay longer.
Well, Kevin, I really it's good to hear your voice. I wish I was back home to see the 100th game between Bangor and Pen Argyl, but I know you're going to do a wonderful job of officiating, you and your crew there, and just enjoy what is what's the word I'm looking for? Just a true community celebration of the great sport of football. So have a blast on Saturday.
I'm expecting to be loud and rambunctious. They've already sold over 5,000 tickets to this game, and Bangor Stadium is not that big. But
I was going to say, where are you putting those people? There's 8 deep on the track, 10 deep on the track.
I don't know what they're going to do, but they have a lot of people. I mean, they've been pre-selling tickets for a long time, and so yeah, they're up there like 5,000 tickets sold.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, Kevin, again, appreciate your friendship and enjoy the game on Saturday. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jeff.
Go to highschoolfootballamerica.com to learn more about the Bangor-Pen Argyl rivalry, where we also have every score from every one of the first 99 games. That's going to do it for today. I'm Jeff Fisher, and this is the High School Football America podcast.